looks like you're ready. Click here. Go live. Oh, okay. Hey, y'all. It's Dr. Know-It-All. I think I finally got this working. So sorry about that. Yay! I think we actually have a live stream. Oh my goodness, that was golly, that only took 9 minutes. Oh my goodness. So apologies for that. I was actually, this is the first time I've tried to do something where it was actually like done ahead of time. So I didn't realize that the ahead of time meant that that it you had to basically manage it. So anyway, my apologies. I think I got it working. Next time we'll go smoother than that. So thank you for hanging in there and waiting for 10 minutes for me to get this thing all working out. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I've got, yay, people are saying I'm live, so that's good. that's a positive sign. So I wanted to start off with just a little bit of a personal story, which is the title for this episode, which is I'm officially now a Tesla EV snob. And the basic thing is that this all started a couple of years ago. Oh no, unfortunately, is there no sound? Are we getting no sound? No sound? That can happen from time to time. Let's see. So many technical problems. Let me know if you're hearing anything. If you can't hear anything, because this definitely says that I'm using the microphone and I'm definitely seeing it, but I can turn on my other sound. Oh, I was muted. Okay, good. Okay. You scared me because, okay, jeez. You guys scared me because one time I did this. I used this USB microphone that I plug in. And one time the microphone, here I'll put it a little bit closer so you can see it, so you can hear me better. But anyway, one time the microphone for some reason wasn't working. Anyway, okay, so let me get back to the story. The whole story starts in 2018 with my brother. My brother and my sister-in-law own a Chevy Bolt, which, as you probably know, is an EV car. They actually had planned to purchase a Tesla Model 3, but if you remember back around that time was when production hell was going on. And there's a great picture of Elon Musk that somebody posted recently of him like passed out on the side of a Tesla Model 3, just completely like wasted. So anyway, that was about 3 years ago. So around then they decided they didn't want to wait any longer and they bought a Chevy Bolt. And I was visiting them. They live in Manhattan Beach in California. And I drove the Bolt a few times while we were vacationing there. And I was like, holy crap, this car is amazing. So that got me motivated. Apologies, it's pollen season out there, so I'm going to be a little congested today. But anyway, that got me motivated to look into Tesla even more. Of course, I'd been a huge fan of Tesla before that, but had just always kind of assumed that they were out of reach in terms of price because they still are very expensive, but they come down a lot, obviously. But anyway, I thought to myself, gee, I really like that. So when the Cybertruck rolled out in late 2019, I went and put in a pre-order because I figured, what the hell, $100, it's refundable. So I figured I'll just wait until 2023 and get one. But then things have worked out. The YouTube channel has done well and other things have done well. And so we were able to purchase a Model Y, as I'm sure anyone who follows this channel regularly knows. And so December 13th was when we took delivery of the Model Y. So it has been January, February, March, almost 4 months, like 3.5 months at this point. And it has gotten to the point where our other car, which is a perfectly lovely 2018 Mazda CX-5, is just sitting in the driveway all the time gathering dust. And even now, we'll take me as one example. I'm a tech head. I'm a big nerd. I've always thought that electric vehicles made more sense. But my wife doesn't care about any of that stuff. And lately she ended up, she had to drive the Mazda CX-5 to Atlanta, which is about, an hour away or so. And she got back and she said, man, I hate that car. And it has nothing to do with the car because it's a perfectly good car. But after driving an electric vehicle, it just feels ridiculous to drive a gas-powered car. It doesn't start well. You push the accelerator and there's this long delay and this like disconnection between the accelerator and when you actually begin to go, and the engine has to spool up, and there's this weird sort of disconnect that happens. And then of course one thing that really, really annoys me, I know some people don't like this, but the single pedal driving is brilliant. Having to push the brakes feels like a complete waste of time. It's like most of the time I can just sit there and mess with the accelerator up and down and be able to get the kind of speed that I want without having to ever really mess around with the brake pedal at all. And of course it's got full self-driving, so that means it's got a whole bunch of features that allow it to drive on its own, which makes it even better. So anyway, it's pretty rough, because I realize that Teslas in particular and electric cars in general are very expensive automobiles right now. So it's a little difficult, and that's why I kind of say it's like being a snob, because it feels like, oh, I've got so much money that I can afford this car. And it is a huge stretch for us. I mean, without a doubt, it's double the price of any other car we've ever paid for, especially with the full self-driving option. So it's not something that we're just like, oh yeah, this is no problem, we can do this, right? We've always purchased $50,000+ cars. This is a huge deal for us, but the difficulty now is that we're both kind of sitting here waiting for the next Tesla that we can afford to purchase. So, probably that's going to be the Cybertruck, because probably it's going to be, in 2022, 2023-ish, something like that. But I really don't foresee us ever wanting to purchase a gas-powered car again, just because they don't. Wow, they really suck compared to an electric car, at least one that's done well. And I'm also including that in the Chevy Bolt. And I know a lot of people disparage the Chevy Bolt, but it was a pretty decent car. It is a decent car. My brother and sister-in-law still own it, and they drive it around, and it's in perfectly good condition. And it'll probably last. One of the nice things about electric cars is who knows how long it'll last, right? Another 5 years, they'll probably own it until they get bored of it and want to buy another car. They're not going to be in a situation where the car itself is going to become such a problem to take care of that they can't utilize it anymore. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to start with, was just this little story about becoming a Tesla snob. It was not something that any of us set out to do. I kind of felt like it would likely happen to me, but I did not expect it to happen to Misinformation or Lane. So if you haven't caught any of those episodes, by the way, you should watch them, because they're a lot of fun. At least I think so. All right, so I know people have been live chatting and everything, so let me turn to some questions and see if anybody has any questions for me. So, So on Discord, I don't know if this was a question for the actual live stream or not, but I got a question that says, do you listen to a radio while driving or streaming? So I'm not exactly, I don't know. I don't know if that was a question for the actual channel, but I mean, that's just kind of I do listen to the radio a lot. I have a tendency to listen to the radio in terms of, oh my goodness, so many questions. I have a tendency to listen to the radio with audiobooks a lot. And I just got back from the gym. You can probably tell my hair is still wet. I had to rush through a shower and everything. So anyway, so I tend to, with earbuds on or while I'm driving, I do listen to music, and I used to listen to music a ton, but I tend to listen to audiobooks more now, because I'm able to read or, get through a lot of books that I generally can't do, because I just don't have the time to sit there and read. But if I'm doing something else like biking or driving or working out at the gym, then I can listen to that stuff. And so I can kind of double duty it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there you go. Let's see. I don't see anything else there, but okay, we got Dan here saying one pedal is awesome. I agree. Interestingly enough, I was talking to my brother and sister-in-law a couple of weeks ago, and my sister-in-law says she hates one pedal driving, and I was actually really surprised at that. Maybe it just has to do, like, I grew up driving a stick shift car, and so that feeling of having the engine engage when you take your foot off the accelerator is a very comfortable feeling to me. And I wonder if it's possible that for some people that's not a very comfortable feeling, because they just are not used to that, right? They're used to the car just continuing going when they take their foot off the pedal. I see that Lane on here says, let me just pull this down. She says terrible acceleration compared, so I'm assuming she's talking about the CX-5. So again, it's not the fault of that car. Until we had an electric car, I thought it was the greatest car on earth. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. We've got a great car. And for the money, it is a fantastic car. I mean, it's sub $30,000. It's really, really hard to beat that in terms of a gas car. But man, it's just, I might actually be able to convince her to do that $2,000 upgrade eventually and get the extra 6/10 of a second off on the acceleration. It is an. I kind of actually now, I hate red lights, but I almost wish for red lights now, because if I'm at the front of the line and there's a person in the other lane, it's just a lot of fun to just look in the rearview mirror and just see them way back there and just go like, oh, that was easy. So anyway. Nasan Bar says, I feel like my body after the pandemic will feel like an ice car. Gosh, that's speaking of going to the gym, right? I've put on a little bit of COVID weight, so it's kind of ugly. Anyway, hopefully it doesn't mess up the shirt. By the way, if you haven't seen that, don't mess with Tesla. Great t-shirt that's available on our merch store, which if you look in the description, you can see how to get that. So anyway, let's see. If you ask me a question at the beginning of the live stream chat, it's going to be hard for me to go back up and look, so just ask it again if you don't see me answering. So Mark says the value of your gas car is going to collapse big time. Yeah, that is for sure. That I'm not. I feel like we need to kind of sell the Mazda at an opportune moment, because I think you're absolutely right. My guess is somewhere around 2025 is when the kind of broader market in the United States is going to really understand that. Now, if you lived in Norway, I would be worried. If I lived in Norway, I would get rid of my gas car immediately, because I have a feeling that the market for that has already begun to collapse. But I think we have a few more years, because when you talk to kind of the average person on the street in the United States, people just don't seem to get it yet. So I think we've got a little bit of time. Plus the fact so many cars are sold in the United States that it's just literally going to take time. Even if everybody wanted a battery operated car immediately, it would be impossible to make that happen because of the scale of battery production that has to happen. So anyway, but yes, it's going to happen, I think, in the 4 or 5 year range. So I personally feel like we have time to buy the Cybertruck and get rid of the CX-5. Or some other, maybe the $25,000 Tesla or something. I think we have time to do that previous to when the market is going to really collapse. But we do need to be careful. We don't want to hold on to it forever, because it's going to be worthless. Nasen says loves the misinformation episodes. Oh, Lane's going to appreciate that. Thank you. She's a lot of fun to play off of, and as you can tell, she's just a lot of fun person. So there you go. Steve from Zimbabwe. Hello, Steve. It's nice to see you. Let's see. Okay, Nasen asks, how many times a week do you get a charge? I'm assuming. So, oh, my live stream is, man. I can't wait till I get Starlink. Our internet, we only have one choice for internet, and it kind of sucks. So anyway, sorry about that, Spectrum, but you guys are pretty wussy. So I'm hoping when we get Starlink, because I'm already on the list for getting it in the fall, that when that happens, that the live stream is going to be substantially better at that point. But anyway, so back to the question: how many times a week do you get a charge? That depends a lot. Now, in terms of superchargers, basically we only do that when we're traveling long distance, or I guess potentially if we go to Atlanta and we didn't tank up the night before, we might stop for a little while to get some stuff, because it's only 60 or 70 miles depending on where you're going in Atlanta. So I usually keep the car charged up at somewhere around 230 miles, and so you can easily do a round trip that's 150 without any problems. But given the fact that our supercharging miles are free right now, I kind of actually look out for superchargers and use them as much as possible, because I'm that's free money right there. But anyway, at home, it kind of varies. It's been a weird year, of course, because obviously we're driving less than we normally do, because we don't have to commute to work because we're working remotely. So I would say on average it's probably about 20 miles a day, and so probably every 2 days. I'm one of those people, my phone has to be 100% or else I'm freaking out. So I keep the car charged at 230 miles, and it's got a range of about 325. So obviously I don't top it off, because that's bad for the battery to keep it like that. But I do like to keep it at that level. So once it drops below about 200 miles, I immediately think to myself, oh, gee, I need to plug it in. And that works out to about once every other day or so. So, you could also just, If you're another kind of person and you're comfortable with the car only having 50 miles of range before you plug it in, then you could obviously wait longer. But I would say probably about 3 times a week ish, unless we go on a longer trip or something, and then obviously that changes around. So that's basically, I would guess, about 3 times a week is when I do it. Or honestly, just sometimes when I remember. It's like I get in and I think to myself like, oh, I should go plug the car in, so I plug it in, right? So I always joke about this. I'm like, if my wife was the one who was in charge, because I swear every single time she goes, look at this on my phone or look at this on my iPad or something, and I look at it and it says battery 20%, and I always laugh because I'm like, every single time it's always low. So she would be the kind of person who would be like, oh crap, I forgot to plug it in last night. So there's those kind of people. So I mean, honestly, if you are that kind of person, that is a kind of potential negative for a battery type car, because you do have to remember to plug it in, because eventually it's gonna run down if you don't use it, and it's not like you can go to the gas station in 5 seconds and fill it back up again, so you have to kind of plan ahead a little bit. So anyway, so that is a very long-winded answer to your question. Oh gosh, Gaetan, I hope that's about right. GM should be making full electric Chevy Volt, much nicer than the Bolt. Oh, Chevy Volt. Yes. Sorry, I misread that small print, even with the glasses. So I agree. I actually thought that the Chevy Volt was a very nice design, like in terms of the size of the car. I wasn't a super big fan of the geometry of it and the look of it, the aesthetics, but whatever. But I thought that the Volt really missed its opportunity, because it should have been the Bolt, right? So they made the Bolt this little subcompact car, but what they should have done is they should have made the Volt an electric car, and they could have had a small car and a bigger car. And by the way, pretty cool names, the Volt and the Bolt. I think that's pretty neat. But yes, the Volt should definitely, I mean, they could still do that in the future. They should make that into a fully electric battery electric vehicle. I think that would be fantastic. So yes, totally agree with you on that. All right. Okay, Pan BV, nice. Comment on the record deliveries and your forecast for subsequent quarters. Oh, yay. I thought somebody was going to ask me about that. So if anybody doesn't know, Tesla delivered just, I can't remember exactly how much shy, but just shy of 185,000 units for the January, February, March quarter. What is incredible about that is actually a higher number than the December quarter of 2020. And that was the highest number that they'd had before. And if you look at the graphs of just anything, I mean, not just Tesla, but generally the first quarter of the year for retail is the worst quarter, because, of course, people spend all their money at Christmas time and the end of the year, blah, blah, blah. And so they do that, and then they don't have as much money to spend, and they don't purchase as much stuff. So every year before that, Tesla would be like this. They'd go up and up and up, and then they drop off in the first quarter and go up and up and up. So the fact that they actually, from the fourth quarter to the first quarter, went up was an amazing, amazing thing. So let's say ballpark 200,000 for the first quarter. Generally speaking, so if you just projected that out and they just remain flat for the rest of the year, that's 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's about 800,000. Oh, also don't forget about the fact that the S and X were not available at all during the first quarter of the year. So there's pent up demand for those cars. And I know they're only in the like 15 to 20,000 units range. But, you know, if you have 2 quarters worth of pent up demand, and I'm sure a lot of people have ordered the models S and X because they were waiting for the refresh. Excuse me. Those are going to, I could easily see this quarter, if they are able to ramp production, that they could sell 30,000 models S and X. So we could just add that to the 3 and the Y, which are already extremely popular. So, all right. So anyway, so if we just go flat for the rest of the year, that's 800,000 units, right? And I think that what we're going to look at is probably, I don't know if I want to get too granular, but let's say I'm going to assume that they're not going to be able to ramp the models S and X quite fast enough to really, really produce all the cars that they have demand for right now in the second quarter. So I'll say maybe like in the 220 to 230 range for the second quarter, okay? And then around 250 for the third quarter. And then if we've got Berlin and some Texas in the fourth quarter, we could easily have over 300,000 vehicles in the third quarter. So what does that add up to? So we've got about 2 plus 230. Well, let's say 2 plus, yeah. So let's just say 400,000 for the first 2 quarters. round, and then another 540. So yeah, I mean, I've been projecting right around 1 million vehicles, and so I think if Tesla is able to ramp production in in Berlin especially, I think Texas is going to be a little bit of a harder thing, but man, they're building that thing fast. And by the way, if anybody's interested, there is now a Send Dr. Know-It-All and Misinformation to Texas fund, so you're welcome to join the fund. The oh gosh, where it is. This is backwards on this thing. There we go. Patreon. You can do that, or you can just add a super chat if you want to. It'd be nice. But anyway, so we're planning on going there sometime about a month from now or so. Depends a little bit on the Starship launching schedule and everything. But we're going to go to Austin. We're going to visit Giga Texas, and we're going to go to Starbase in Texas, and we're going to hopefully catch a launch. That would be super cool. So anyway, given all that, I definitely think if things go well, they could produce more than 1 million vehicles, and I'm sure that that's their internal goal. So that, fingers crossed, right? That would be an amazing thing to be able to produce 1 million vehicles just a couple of years after almost going bankrupt. I mean, that's pretty astounding. So there we go. Let me turn to Discord for a second. So the question about radio was meant for the stream. Do you trust the trip planner yet? Actually, yes. I've been using a better route planner to go along with my Tesla, the Tesla navigation. But I like a better route planner because it's a nice way to visualize the route. But the fact that doesn't have as much access to information as my actual Tesla, I tend to like to use the Tesla rerouting thing. And what I'll do sometimes is like when we went on our trip to Springfield, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. to see my parents, because we were vaccinated, so yeah. Anyway, when we went to see them a couple of weeks ago, we actually would look at the better route planner because sometimes we were like, well, for our convenience, we want to stop at a different time or, something like that than what Tesla is telling us we should do. So we were able to identify other good candidates for superchargers along the way. And then, of course, we could just tell the Tesla navigation system to navigate to that supercharger. And that's helpful because what it does is it starts to precondition the batteries so that they charge much, much faster when you get there. So I don't recommend just using another navigation system and navigating to the supercharger and then going and plugging in, because the batteries, I assume I don't know. It seems like if you're using them that much that they should be okay no matter what. But for whatever reason, they really like to precondition themselves. And I've also looked at the energy usage as it's cut on while we're driving, and for a moment the energy usage goes way up as it preconditions the batteries. So I'm assuming it's heating them up, or it's doing something like that to try to get them ready, because they charge much better at a certain temperature. So it's probably modifying the temperature to get just the right temperature for the charging to be adequate when it starts. So anyway, yeah. So I do trust the trip planner, but it's nice to have another navigation software package like a better route planner, which allows you to alter the plans if you want to, because it's harder to do that with the Tesla route planner. Oh, hey, thank you. All right. You can come and join us. You don't want to? Okay. I like that. Got a little San Pellegrino. I'm not advertising San Pellegrino. I'm just happens. So my lovely wife, Misinformation, was like, "Oh, you sound like you're a little bit dry." So there you go. All right. Thank her. That's nice. All right. So yeah. So I do trust it, but it's nice to have an alternative. How's that? That's the short answer. All right. Another Discord question. Do you think Giga Austin will deliver anything this year? So I think I've kind of quasi answered that already. My personal opinion is that they will definitely deliver something just so that they can say they've done it. Now, is that going to be 10 cars? I don't think they're going to deliver the Cybertruck, which makes me super sad. I don't think that's going to happen by the end of 2021. And the main reason is batteries. Always batteries. I think that they're going to have some issues in terms of how to construct the vehicle, but it sounds like they've got a pilot plant that they're working on, a pilot production line in Nevada that they're putting up. So they'll be able to work out a lot of that stuff early. So I don't think that's going to be the issue, but I think the problem is just going to be batteries, because they're going to be using the 4680 cells, which means they're going to, so the Cybertruck, the Model Y in Germany, which is already committed to the 4680 batteries, and the Semi, which is, that takes a lot of batteries. So all of those are going to be competing for the same set of batteries. And I believe that, that means that the Cybertruck is just going to be delayed. I think that's also why the Plaid Plus is delayed. I think what they realized was that they had way overcommitted to the number of batteries that they're able to produce. So until another battery production line comes on, like the one in Berlin, and then hopefully the one in Texas, or I can't remember if Nevada's working on one too. But anyway, until we get more 4680 battery production available, then they're going to really kind of restrict that. So I predict what's going to happen is the Berlin Model Y is already committed to the 4680. I think the Texas one will probably also go 4680, simply because I could see them also putting in the older battery cells, is it 2170s, is that right? Anyway, but the one that I currently have in ours, I could see them doing that, but the problem is that then they'll have to retool the entire production line, and that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because what makes more sense is for them to be able to you just want to build it once, because they're going to build that structural battery pack architecture for the Model Y in the future. And if they build the older style production line, then they're just going to have to retool it eventually anyway. So I think it makes a lot more sense for them to just start off in Texas building the Model Y with the 4680 structural battery cell, unless they decide to go some other way and make it structural with the smaller battery cells. I don't know. But so anyway, I think that Texas will produce some cars this year, but it's going to be on the order of a couple of thousand, and they're just going to squeeze it out right before the end of the year, just kind of as a way of saying that they've done it. I think I don't recall if the Model Y in Shanghai actually was able to get a few Model Ys out before the end of the year, but I think it was early 2021. So anyway, it's going to be right around then. So if Texas does it, it's going to be just a little bit before the end of the year. That's my prediction. And a lot of that's just going to come down to batteries. I think that their production lines are going to be available sooner than the batteries will be available. So that 4680 battery cell is going to be a real sticking point for about a year or so until they get more power plants up, more battery plants up. So, all right. So that was some questions there. Let's see. All right. Black House Brew. I only listen to music since the sound system is so good. Yes. Oh my gosh. The sound system in the Tesla and our Model Y. I mean, dang. I would swear, but I'm trying to keep this family friendly. It is amazing how good it is. I happen to get on a Counting Crows kick the last couple of days, so I've been listening to them a lot in the cars I've been driving, and it's just amazing. It's really nice. I also love classical music, so I listen to that a lot, and it's, that's actually, as an audiophile, that's how I judge my audio system, because everything that's produced electronically is sort of, mastered and modified already. Classical music, the ideal goal is to capture the exact performance, and then you listen to it. So I always judge my audio equipment based on classical music, and the Tesla audio system is amazing. It's not too bass heavy either, which I think so many car audio systems fall victim to. I don't like that bass heavy. Obviously, you can turn up the bass if you want to, but I swear I didn't have to touch it, right? I usually have to fiddle with the stupid system to get it just right, or even close to right. And this system just came out of the box so nice, and yeah, it's a huge privilege. It's really, really nice. And of course the cars are expensive, so I guess that would be expected, but it is an excellent audio system. So super, super good. Oh gosh, you're a cad. What is a snob? Oh, well, there you go. Let's get back to basics. So I think, you might think about somebody. I don't know why I always do an English accent when I think about a snob, but they'd be like, I only go to the best schools, and I only go to Whole Foods to buy my food, and I don't deal with the riffraff of people. So I have no idea why I think that a snob is British, but anyway, and I'm sorry to British people. There's no reason why you're not snobs. It's fine. But anyway, it's a person who kind of likes expensive things only, likes really cultured things, looks down on people who aren't cultured or don't have a lot of money. So that's what a snob is. It's not a good thing. So I was kind of tongue-in-cheek in my title, because it's like admitting you're a snob is not the greatest thing in the world. So it's a bit of a joke, but it's also a little bit true. I hate to say that about the car. So, all right. Tom asked about talking about the sound system. If I didn't answer your question, then for sure ask more. So let's see. Are you going to do, Michael said, are you going to do a deep dive on the specific language of the proposed EV stimulus of the Biden proposal? Okay. Wow. So, I have not looked at the bill. Oh my goodness. Somebody live chatted and sent a super chat of $10, and I apologize. Oh, Cybertruck Mike. Dude, have fun in Texas. Thank you so much, Cybertruck Mike. I appreciate that. We will definitely have fun in Texas. Do you think I can wear this shirt in Texas, or are people going to mess with me? I don't know, man. Texas scares me. It's its own country. And that's coming from a person who's actually honestly, seriously considering. I mean, between, I think Giga Austin or Giga Texas is looking at hiring 10,000 people, and Starbase is looking at hiring like 2,000 people in the next year or two. So I'm dead serious about thinking about trying to apply for a job there. So if anybody's working for Tesla or SpaceX and you're watching this, hey, look me up. So I'm serious about that. But anyway, I don't know why it scares me to go there. I think because they're just kind of all known for their guns, and I'm just like, ooh, man. But anyway, so I don't know if this shirt is a good idea to wear in Texas or not, but hopefully it is. Hopefully people will find the fun in it. Anyway, so yeah. I haven't looked at the specific language. Are you talking about the Biden proposal itself, or the Chuck Schumer thing that I did an episode on? Because Chuck Schumer's plan, and he's the Senate Majority Leader, is much more ambitious than Biden's plan. Biden's plan, I think the one that I've seen so far, just says that the goal is to replace all of the government vehicles, which is about 650,000 with BEVs. And I don't remember if there was a specific timeline for that. And then the second part of that was to bring back like EV incentives, so that right now, is it $7,000 or $7,500 that you get? But a smaller electric vehicle company can get you can get $7,000 or $7,500 back from the government for buying one of those cars. But after you sell 200,000 vehicles, that goes away, which is why you don't get it with Tesla anymore, which is really unfortunate. For us consumers, at least, because it would be nice if the car was a lot less money. But anyway, I think that is not as ambitious as Chuck Schumer's plan, which is to try to get the entire country to go EV by 2030, which is impressive. That's a very impressive goal. I don't personally think it's going to make it through Congress, because there's way too many people who are blah. It may make it there in a watered down version in which they don't have a due date or something, right? That seems to always be what happens in the government. It's very frustrating, because it's really hard to push forward an aggressive agenda, because it always gets watered down and ends up being kind of meh at the end. So anyway, but I should actually probably look at that. So thank you, Michael. I should definitely look at that. If you send me an email at my email address, which is just Dr. Know-It-All, Dr. Know-It-All knows at Gmail. Anyway, if you send me an email to that just to remind me after this, then I will look into it for sure. Dan says, I bet she won't let you upgrade. Yeah, not yet, at least. I just have to convince her. I wish Tesla would give you a 7-day trial period, so they would you could get it in like one of those things where they would charge you after 7 days if you don't like say no. But it would be pretty fun to try it out and have her like actually experience the faster acceleration. She'd probably kill me, by the way. So, okay, Cybertruck Mike, can't take Bolt on road trips unless you have hours to spare. Yes, that is for sure. So, for people who don't know, the Bolt, it has a relatively small battery. I think it's only a little over 200 miles, or right around 200 miles. But the bigger issue is it takes bloody forever to charge. So that works out great for my brother and sister-in-law, because they charge it up and they drive it around as a city car. They don't really have to go on any road trips. And if they do, they have a gas-powered car, so if they want to drive up to Sonoma or something like that and do some wine tasting. How nice would that be? But anyway, they can for sure take a gas car for that. But the Bolt is a great city car, not so good for road trips. And the Tesla also, when we went on our trip to Springfield, it added, I'm trying to remember, I think it added about 90 minutes to the trip each direction. So it was a 9-hour and 15-minute trip, and it had, well, I guess 75 minutes. It ended up being about 10 and a half hours. So it's a pretty significant difference when you're thinking about going from a trip that takes you 9 hours and 15 minutes to 10 and a half hours. Now, that's mitigated to some extent by the fact that the car is driving itself quite a bit, and so it's a much more sort of comfortable drive. And as I said in the video where we talked about it, a lot of the times we weren't even waiting on the car because we would go do something. We'd go eat or walk the dog or something like that. And then we'd my watch would go off. Sorry, I had my Apple Watch, not my Omega, but it would, bing, and it would be like, hey, the car's done. And we're like, oh crap, we got to go do that. So you just kind of like, I don't know, you slow your roll a little bit. How's that? You're not like one of those, I'm the kind of person who like treats a stop for gasoline like an Indianapolis 500, like pit stop, where it's like, I'm going to fill up, you go get the food, we're going to like run to the bathroom and cross paths and get back in and like eat while we're in the car. So it's like, if it takes more than 5 minutes, damn it. So, that kind of a thing. So Lane said she really enjoyed driving with me much more on this road trip because I was just mellow about it. It's like when it's going to take 25 minutes to charge, you're just like, okay, it's going to take 25 minutes. We can't make it go faster than that. So anyway. All right, let's see. Misinformation, or Lane gives. The battery on my phone starts losing its strength after a couple of years. What about the battery on the Tesla? How long before it would start losing strength or have to be replaced? Okay, so that is a fantastic question. Thank you. Ooh, good for her. So let's see. $7,500. I got on Discord. It is $7,500 tax credit. So it's a big deal, right? If you're looking at a $50,000 car, that suddenly makes it $42,500. Or if they get, oh my gosh, if they reintroduce that bill and we can get down to a $25,000 car, if the car's retail value is $25,000 and we drop it to $17,500 for an electric car with, let's say, 220 miles of range or something, holy mackerel, right? I'll buy that. That's ridiculous. You can't buy a gas car for that price unless you're just buying some, tiny piece of garbage. So yeah, that would be huge if they would reintroduce that soon for all these automobiles. Okay, so the question about batteries losing their strength. Yes, so phone batteries definitely lose their strength, and that's one of the main reasons why we end up replacing our phones, right? Because eventually you're like, geez, after 6 hours it's like dead, and I can't use it because I have to keep recharging it during the day, and so it's not any good. One second. So the question then becomes, what about car batteries? Well, car batteries chemistry is different than cell phone batteries. Also, car batteries are not restrained. Look at this. I actually did a whole episode on how stupidly thin and how we need cases for our phones and everything. So the phones themselves are really, really small, and the battery pack is super constrained by size, whereas volumetrically, at least, a battery is not really restrained in an automobile because cars are big. So they just basically they sit underneath the seats, right, and they make a huge big rectangle underneath the bottom of the car. So they're not nearly as constrained, but also the battery chemistry is such that they're designed to cycle more. The other thing is that again, I don't know, I assume she notices that normally, unless we're going on a trip, I only charge it up to about 80%, which means that as long as the vehicle itself is being clever about it, it can charge up batteries, and it can let some batteries be less charged and other batteries be more. And so it can manage them. So let's say you have 1,000 cycles on a battery before it gets down to 80% or something. So the standard, at least from what I've seen, is, at least with a BEV battery, is that at the very beginning you get a drop off of the charge capability. And we definitely saw that with our Model Y. It went from 326 miles just after we purchased it at a full charge to, I think it kind of varies a little bit. It's about 318 right now, or 319, somewhere in that range. I haven't charged it up fully for a while. But I do notice that the 80% charge that I used to use was like 234, 235, and now it's about 231, 232. So we've definitely lost a chunk of range already. But that's expected. That usually happens right at the beginning of the battery life, and it kind of goes boop like that. And then it just sort of slides a little bit down, a little bit down, a little bit down. And after, I think the common wisdom right now is, it's 1,000 cycles, but that works out to something like 300,000 miles-ish, 250 to 300,000 miles, which is a lot of miles. I have never personally driven a car over 200,000 miles. It takes a long time to do that, right? Even if you're driving 20,000 miles a year, that's 10 years you've got to own that car to drive it 200,000 miles. So it would still have 80% of its range. And of course, if you look at the battery, the warranty on the battery, I actually looked at the exact language, and it says 120, I think it's actually 124,000 miles. Maybe it's because it works out to a certain round number of kilometers. But it's that or 5 years, whichever comes first, and it's guaranteed to be at least 70%. So that's pretty conservative. It's unlikely, unless you have a problem with your system, that the battery is going to drop below that. It's much more likely that it's going to be between 85 and 90% at that 120,000 mile range. So anyway, yes, it will lose range over time, but even after, say, 250,000 miles, so the car is going to be probably 12 or 13 or 14 years old, that still means that you've got somewhere, for our car, we've got somewhere around the 230, 240 mile range for that older car, right? So, it's not as good, of course, because you can't drive as far, but certainly at that point, the car is pretty old, and so the likelihood is that if we haven't sold it, it's going to be our second car at that point, right? If we keep it, good gracious, I'm going to be old if we keep the car for that long. But it will be a secondary car at that point because we will have purchased a newer car, which we'll be using. So at that point, the car would be more like a city driving car or something. So who cares whether it's got 300 miles of range or 200 miles of range at that point? So the battery will degrade, but it's not going to degrade that much, and it won't be as bad as a phone because it's not as badly constrained size-wise. I personally think that they build phones on purpose such that the batteries degrade fairly rapidly in phones. But we also just abuse our phones a lot more than we abuse cars. It's just a way of putting it. The way that we treat the phones and the way that we charge them and discharge them and everything very rapidly all the time. Because if you think about it, if your car's just hanging out in your garage and just sitting there and nothing's happening to the battery, it's just, might lose a mile a day of range, but nothing else is going to happen to it. Whereas most of us take our phones and use them constantly, so we abuse them much worse, and so we treat the batteries a lot worse. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question. There we go. Okay, Mark says, it only takes a small percentage to collapse the value of ICE. It will happen faster than you think. Tony Seba. Oh, wow. If that's coming from Tony Seba, then I should probably listen to him, because he is a very smart guy. And yes, we are at a tipping point. The only reason I think that ICE car value will not go down as fast as some people think is literally we can't make battery electric vehicles fast enough. Now, here's the counterpoint to that. If people are patient, let's say we've got our Mazda CX-5, right? So it was purchased in 2018, so it's not quite 3 years old now, excuse me. This is why I need this. I swear I feel like I'm an advertisement for this seltzer water. Yes, also on Discord, thank you. We tend to charge phones to 100% daily, absolutely. So we do that. I've noticed that with this iPhone 12, it's the operating system has some sort of battery management that's more, it says it learns what your battery needs are and charges it according to that. So I've noticed sometimes it doesn't charge it to quite 100% anymore. So I think they are working on that. But yes, that's one of the reasons why for our daily driving purposes, I don't tank up our Model Y to 100% battery, because it would not be ultimately good for it. So it's better to keep those batteries. I think 20 to like 80% is the sweet spot, or 20 to 70. They like to kind of live in that range. That makes them happy. What happens is if you charge them up too much too fast, they can get these dendrites that start to grow in, and it's kind of like little fingers or little roots that grow into the batteries, and it causes them to lose the capacity to hold electrons and positive ions. So that's the reason why they degrade. So the less you kind of push them to the limit and like charge them to 100% and discharge them to 0% and charge them to 100% and discharge them to 0, the less you do that, the better. And we tend to do that a lot with our phones. So anyway, yeah, okay. All right. Yes. But anyway, so Mark, in response to that thing about I was saying, sorry, I got this sidetracked here, but what could cause a collapse of ICE car prices, even while we don't have enough BEVs to replace them, is if the general population, and this is a big ask, but if the general population starts going like, I want a battery electric car, And we currently own a Mazda CX-5. So that's 3 years old. It's got, I think, 40,000 miles on it. So, I mean, geez, we could literally keep that car for a long time, right? For 8 or 10 more years. But instead of going out and purchasing a new car next year, right? So if we're like, oh, we want a new car. And what we would do is, instead of purchasing a new car next year, a new Mazda CX-5 or some other car, what we would do is say like, oh, but if we wait another 12 months, we can get a BEV car. That would cause the collapse to happen really fast. If people start to think about the future and to think about, okay, I can wait another 12 months to buy a battery electric car as opposed to buying an ICE car now. If that happens, then yes, the flip will happen almost immediately, because a lot of people, most people don't have cars that they need to replace, right? Even the older cars that are on the road now, yeah, they may cost some money in maintenance and stuff, but you can keep those things running for a long time. So new cars is very, very sensitive to consumer sentiment. And if consumers decide that they don't need one right away, if they're like, I can wait another year, that's bad news for cars. So that could cause the flip to happen very, very rapidly. That would be terrible. No, I mean terrible for ICE car manufacturers. I think it's ultimately good for society. Okay, Cybertruck Mike, we have a 2017 Volt and a 2010 Corolla. The Corolla stays parked most of the time. When in town, we never buy gas. It irks me that it takes so long to charge the Volt, even at 240 volts. So the Volt charges the Volt. What's the Cybertruck Mike? What is the range of the Volt? Is it like 40 or 50 miles before you have to kick in the gas engine? But those hybrid vehicles, the PEVs or plug-in electric vehicles, are pretty cool as a concept. I'm not as big a fan of them now because I feel like now the battery technology has gotten better. You have batteries and you have a gas engine, and it's a lot of complexity and a lot of cost in it. So I personally feel like they're stopgap solutions, and I don't know what you feel about that thing. But for the time being, right now, it makes a lot of sense to have hybrid vehicles like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the Volt, I've never driven a Volt, I've driven the Bolt, but I'm sure that the quality of the driving is substantially better in the Volt when it's on electric and it's using the electric engines. And probably, I'm assuming that the gas engine is like a range extender, which is recharging the battery. So it's using the electric engines all the time, and the motor is just a charging feature. I could be wrong about that. I don't know specifically about the Volt. But anyway, yeah. So I don't know, what are you going to say about that? We have a pretty much brand new car. I mean, 40,000 miles is not that much, and we're just not using that car right now. And I think that's going to happen more and more and more to people as more and more people start to experience driving an electric vehicle. And that could be through friends. Maybe people say like, oh yeah, borrow my car for a while, or drive to the store with me, or family members or whatever. But it could happen. It could happen super fast. It would be, it would be very bad news for auto companies, for auto dealerships, and even for those of us who have loans with cars, because we could actually go underwater, right? In the sense that, like, the housing market, right? If you purchase a house at $200,000 and suddenly there's a collapse in the market and it's only worth $150,000, and you owe more money than the house is worth. The same thing could happen to automobiles, where you could owe more money than the automobile is worth. Now, obviously, when you drive it off the lot, that immediately happens unless you put down a big down payment. But I just mean in general, it could be worth a lot less than you owe on it. And I've heard that there will be a range of people who will walk away from their loans and just say like, yeah, repo the car. What do I care? It'll mess your credit rating up, but it's probably better than paying $20,000 or $30,000 on something that you don't need anymore. So we'll see what happens. All right. Oh, wow. We have over 200 people watching. Oh my gosh, 206. Yeah, thank you for notifying me of that. That's really cool. Thank you all for watching. That's awesome. Okay, let me, okay, Michael says I agree. All right. Lane says, Dan, Doc is in the mentioning often stage. When he gets into the I want it stage, he'll get I assume we are back to the acceleration package. Currently, actually, in all honesty, I'm currently in the I feel really guilty stage because the car is so expensive that I feel bad. I keep, like my birthday was in January, and I was like, don't even buy me any presents. I don't need any presents. It's terrible. So of course you bought me a present, but I'm in that super feeling guilty stage right now about how expensive the car is. So you guys should like subscribe to the channel and make the numbers grow. And then eventually I'll just like make so much money I'll just be able to pay off the car, and then I won't have to feel guilty about it anymore. So there you go. There's the solution to it. But anyway, so I think that's honestly in some ways the bigger problem is that I feel really guilty about the cost of the car, and so I don't feel like I can ask for another $2,000 for the acceleration package. But we will see. We will see what happens. Chris West says 3 times a week. That's crazy. Chris, I think you might be misunderstanding me. I'm talking about when that thing, so I charge up to about 230 to 235 miles. And then if it gets below about 200 miles, I plug it in. So I'm only talking about, sometimes it's only charging 20 or 30 miles of range overnight. So I'm not talking about the thing's empty and I'm charging it all the way up again. It's just my personality. I don't like, I'm the kind of person when I get into a car that's a gas car and the thing's like under the half full mark, I go to the gas station. So that's just my personality. I like to keep things like charged up all the time. So hopefully that makes more sense. I just do it as a convenience because how difficult is it to just go like, just stick the plug in the car overnight? And, for example, last night I actually drove it for 2 days relatively heavily, and so it was down to about 170 miles of range that was left on it. And I plugged it in, and it only took I think it took 1 hour last night. I just happened to check it last night just because I was like, oh, it's charging. And I think it only took like an hour to charge. So it's not like I'm charging it from dead empty to full 3 times a week. That's not at all the case, just a little bit. Oh, super chat from Mark. Oh, thank you. Now your car fund. Yay. Mark is the beginning of my car fund. I'm going to have to start like a fund to go to Texas and a fund to pay off the car. So, but thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. That would be lovely. Okay. Let's see. Mark says, Lane, your phone has less charging controls. You take it to 100% instead of 80%. Yes. And like I said, I think that the new operating system on Macs, and I don't know what's going on with Android, but possibly the same thing with Android as well. They're trying to begin to do a better job of charging control. But I agree. I mean, under a normal circumstance, I would like to be able to have control with this phone and tell it to only charge up to 80% on normal daily usage. And then to also be able to say, but hey, I'm going on a trip tomorrow. Please charge this thing up to 100% now. So it's annoying that you don't have that kind of granular control. Maybe you do on Android, so maybe that makes Android better. So that would be good. All right, Cybertruck Mike, your current EV will lose its value and the cost of manufacturing newer EVs will come down. ARC is forecasting significant deflation in new EVs. Yeah, I did worry about that with the Model Y. I mean, when we purchased it, we had a 90%, like people would own a Model 3 for 3 years and they would get a 90% return, right? So they could drive it for 30 or 40,000 miles, own it for 3 years, sell it to somebody else for 90% of what they bought it. I don't think that's going to continue, but I think it will in the short term. It's going to continue because as long as Tesla can't make enough Teslas, then it's going to continue because the demand is going to outstrip the supply. The other piece of that puzzle, though, is that purchasing a car is always a depreciating asset, right? An automobile, it doesn't gain value like a house. Like you hope that when you buy your house, it will over time gain value. A car never will. So I honestly don't really see any reason why we would sell the Model Y in less than 10 years. And so at that point, whether it's depreciated 70% or 80%, it's going to be very unimportant to us because the car is going to have been paid off a long time ago. We will have gotten our use out of it. We'll have spent the money on it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know what to tell you about that, but it's definitely going to go down, and it's not going to be worth as much as they have been in the past. But I don't think it's going to matter that much because it's sort of like Tesla stock. It's like just hodl. Right? You don't need to sell your Tesla stock. You can hold on to it and watch it. Hopefully, again, not a financial advisor, please, whatever. Do due diligence. But at least my personal opinion is don't sell this thing. I'm going to retire hopefully in about 10 years, and my goal is to sell it then. And we'll see where it goes from now until then. But yes, I do expect EV prices will deflate as the market gets flooded with EVs. I don't expect them to deflate nearly at the same rate that ICE car deflation will happen, because they'll go to basically worthless in the next 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. So that's kind of a buyer beware right now. If you're looking at purchasing a new car right now, it's something that you really do have to take account of, is that they may not be worth very much at all when you sell them. So that's a danger for sure. All right, Nesson, do you use the entertainment system in the Tesla? If so, what do you use it for? I do. I really, really hate to say this, but every time we have a new passenger in the car, we put fart mode on. So it's just, we're all just a bunch of 12-year-olds. My wife loves solitaire, so when we're going on road trips and stuff, if she's a passenger, not when she's driving, but if she's a passenger, she'll play solitaire on the screen. Whenever we charge, we tend to watch Netflix movies, or actually we usually watch sitcoms or something, right? So they're like 20, 25 minutes, which is about perfect. So Schitt's Creek is great. Episodes, if you haven't watched Episodes with Matt LeBlanc yet, I highly recommend it. It's very, very funny if you like British kind of humor and if you know anything about Hollywood. But anyway, those episodes, are in the 25-minute range, which is like perfect. You go to the bathroom, you come back, you watch an episode, the charging's done, you get on your way. So that's what we tend to use the entertainment system for. I do like Polytopia. Sometimes if I'm charging by myself, I'll play Polytopia because it's a lot of fun. It's unfortunate that you can't play Polytopia on like your computer or something and then like switch it back and forth so you can keep games going. But anyway. All right. Misinformation again. I don't know about forgetting to charge the car. Anxiety over range anxiety is strong with this one. Plus, it's still shiny and new, so I probably wouldn't forget to plug in the car. So there you go. That's her comment. I'll leave that as it is. So that's great. I'm actually happy. I'm actually happy that that's the way. Michael asks, will you do a deep dive into the infrastructure bill? Yes. Okay. So that's a secondary question. Thank you for asking again. Andre, greetings from Norway. This year is election year in Norway, and there's talk of reinstating a 25% tax on EVs. Some suggest one that costs more than $70,000 users are all tax-free. Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't even realize that. So what I'm understanding, Andre, is that cars, if you purchase an EV car right now in Norway, there is no tax on the car. So, and in Norway, of course, that's a big deal. It's a quarter of the value of the car. It's 25%. In Georgia, gosh, what was it? I think it was 6.7%, and even that was very painful, right? You're 6.7% of a $50,000 car is like, so anyway, so it's a lot, but a quarter of that value is 2512, so that would raise a 50,000 car to like $63,000. So that is a huge amount of money. Now, of course, if it's only instated for cars that are over $70,000, I don't know what Tesla like Model 3 and Model Y are going for in Norway right now, but certainly they're much less expensive than that in the United States. So it would only be the Model S and the Model X that would be affected by that. But anyway, that would be a major change in Norway. But honestly, it sounds like the momentum is so strong at this point that people will probably just continue to go with EV cars anyway. That's my guess, at least. All right, Cybertruck Mike, will Tesla home charger, I think you can keep it plugged in and schedule charging. Yes, absolutely. So Cybertruck Mike, like I just plug the car in when I get home at the end of the day, and it's scheduled to start at 11:30. So I don't know if you know that, but in Georgia we have this ridiculous rate from 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. It's 1 penny per kilowatt hour, which is just crazy. We have a 75 kilowatt hour battery pack in our car. If it was completely empty and we completely filled it up, it would cost us 75 cents. And you can do that in less than 8 hours overnight. So, I mean, holy mackerel. So basically, if I'm charging 50 miles on this thing or something overnight, it's just costing a few cents. So yeah, absolutely, we schedule the charging. I don't plug it in during the day and charge it because that would be stupid. It costs a lot more money. So, all right. Rob Womack, oh, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. It's for some reason it didn't pop up at the top, but I see it now as I'm scrolling through. So thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Chris says, I love Tesla, but they need to bring down the charge times, increase ranges, and increase the amount of superchargers. Ooh, yes, bringing down the charge time would be great. I'm hoping with the 4680 battery cells that is going to happen. We will see, but hopefully that will happen. Increasing the number of supercharges, absolutely. I did an episode, if you look back, it was right around my birthday, so like right at the end of January, if you kind of search back through my videos. I did one about how we had to take the Mazda on a ski trip because there were no chargers on the whole 3-hour back and forth route. So we would have had to go out of our way to find a charger. So yeah, for sure, superchargers in more weird places. I love what Rivian is doing right now, putting out superchargers at national parks and everything. We're going to Yosemite this summer, and we're going to fly there. So it's not like we're going to be having our Tesla there anyway. But how cool would it be to be able to, drive your Tesla to like a national park and then have a place where you could plug it in and charge up? I think that that's really important, and that should be done for sure. So definitely more superchargers would be great, and increase the range. So again, either there's going to be fewer batteries with the same range, or with the 4680 battery cells, there's going to be more range with the same amount of volume. So I think all of these things are going to happen over time, for sure. This is one of those things, this technology is so new, you just have to be patient with it. So I think that's part of what's going on here. Nelson says I can't donate in Super Chat. Oh, don't worry about it. It's fine. I appreciate any Super Chats, but I'm certainly not requiring it. But thank you for the kind thoughts anyway. Always smelling good. Is Tesla still a buy at this price? Ooh. Again, not a financial advisor. Definitely not. I'm very, very risk averse, but I did personally purchase a couple of shares of Tesla recently when it dropped below $600. And I don't know, is anybody... okay, I've got a question on Discord, but I want to ask on Discord, does anybody know what Tesla's current share price is right now on Friday? It's going to go up on Monday, no matter what. I mean, well, okay. Again, do your own due diligence. I don't want to get in trouble with the SEC or anything like that. But I think after this quarterly result, it would be kind of mind-blowing if Tesla's stock did not go up on Monday, but who the hell knows? I mean, Apple introduces new products and their stock goes down, so it's anybody's guess in the short term. But again, if you're holding this stuff for years, who cares what it's doing in the next couple of weeks or months or something, right? I really feel strongly that it's going to go up over years. So anyway, so from Discord, have you considered going solar, and have you installed a charger outlet? So the easy one is, yes, we've installed the Tesla charger outlet. I was originally just going to have an electrician put in one of those dryers, the 240 ones that are like the 3-pronged 240s, and charge our car that way, because it doesn't really matter that much. But we got a big rebate from Georgia Power, which is our electric company, for putting in an official L2 charger. So it almost paid for the cost of the getting the cool Tesla charger, which is that like white box with the cool little things that go up and down. Anyway, so I figured since we can take it with us at any point, no big deal. But anyway, so we got that, and we got money back from Georgia Power, which basically paid for that. So there was no sense not getting that. 690-ish, it closed Thursday at 661. Oh, so after hours trading, it's up to 690. So I guess it already has started to go up. But yeah, I mean, if you look at all the financial sites like Solving the Money Problem, or Tesla Daily, or the people who know a heck of a lot more than I do about stock in particular, they're all talking about it going 3 or 4x over the next 5 to 10 years or something. So as long as you don't need the money right now, it seems like it is not such a bad idea to put it in. But again, just my thoughts. All right, and going solar from Discord. So I really, really want to go solar, but I also just don't feel like we're living in the house that we're going to like be retired in. So I have a real bent. I really, really want to move back to Los Angeles or the LA area, because number one, part of my family is there, but number two, it's just my favorite place in the world. So, and I know, warts and all, because it's not the perfect place by any means, but if we lived there and we had a house, I would absolutely put solar in. Also because electricity is way expensive there. So there's a lot of reasons for that. Part of the problem in Georgia is it just takes a long time to pay your solar investment back out, because the rates are so blessed cheap. So anyway, those things have kind of stood in the way. I really would like to get a battery pack, however, because those are portable, but Tesla no longer sells them separately. So I just did an episode on that. Was that yesterday? I think. Wow. But I think that what I'm going to have to do is start researching third parties, like other people that make battery packs, and look into that too. Because I think that if we just charge up and then run our air conditioners or something off of that during the highest peak usage times, that would, even without energy arbitrage and stuff, that it would actually be very beneficial to us. So I think it's definitely worth researching that, because of course we can always deinstall that and move it to a new house if we want to. So that doesn't have the same problems. So, all right. Alrighty. Nasen is giving some, looks like Swiss hearts for misinformation. So there you go. Chris West says, I hear the batteries last a couple million miles before they degrade. That is probably more the 4680 battery cell chemistry than the older ones. I think the older ones are in the 250, 300,000 mile range, and the newer ones are up to 1 million. Now, again, you still got 80% of your battery range, so if you don't care about 80%, then you can keep driving it and driving it and driving it. So it's the same kind of thing, right? You can, our old phones that have the crappy batteries, you can still use it. It's just a question of how inconvenient and how annoying it is to have to kind of recharge them all. But like I said earlier, once a car gets to 10 years old or so, it's more than likely going to become your secondary car anyway if you still own it. So the likelihood is that you would not use it for long trips anyway. You'd use it for around town driving. So at that point, it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. All right. Yeah, so some answers. KN944 said, how often do you drive more than 250 miles? Exactly, right? Especially if it's your second car. If it's your first car and you live in the United States and your family lives far away, you could do that. But for your secondary car that you're just mostly using to go to work or something, yeah, definitely. Okay. Ruben says that it's too late, I assume, for purchasing Tesla stock at this point. So you might be right. Again, don't take my advice. I'm not a stock analyst. I bought most of my Tesla stock much, much, much cheaper a year ago. And so I don't see any reason to sell at this point, because it's made me a good deal of money right now. So, all right. Mark says, battery constrained, chip constrained, yet they set records. Elon is sandbagging. And that is a really good point, Mark. Yeah, because Tesla's had a lot of battery constraint problems, and with the whole rest of the industry, they have had huge chip supply constraints. And it is and they also didn't sell the Model S and Model X, right? So they had all of these things, all of these headwinds against them, and yet they still broke records. It's really remarkable, and it's really true. I think Elon has finally learned how to sandbag. So, because he used to promise full self driving is coming out next week, and it's well, where is it? So I can't wait until I'm putting this on the record, 4/20. So about 2.5 weeks from now, is going to be the date that they're going to release the button for the new beta of the software, because you know that Elon Musk on 4/20 wants to release something like that. And if you don't know what 4/20 is, well, bless you. But anyway, most people will understand why Elon in particular would want to release it on 4/20. Cybertruck Mike, another, thank you so much. I think that must have been one that I saw before, but anyway, thank you again for the super chat. I guess I'm way behind in my chats here, so I'm going to try to catch up quick. I'm going to run out of voice here soon. It's been over an hour, so I'm going to have to go, because I promised misinformation that we would do some fun things this afternoon. So anyway. All right, consider misinformation. Misinformation sounds a lot like... Oh, no, that's the whole joke, Alan. That's exactly what we're going for. It's just... So Dr. Know-It-All is a tongue-in-cheek name, because my family would always say that. They'd be like, oh, you always have an opinion on everything, which maybe you noticed that. So I was kind of going by Mr. Know-It-All, but then I was like, wait, I got a doctorate, so I'm going to go with Dr. Know-It-All. So anyway, so that's the whole thing's tongue-in-cheek. And then we thought that misinformation, we actually thought originally misinformed, but it sounded funnier to say misinformation. So yeah, it's totally a joke. The whole thing's a joke. So sorry that confused you, but it was supposed to be amusing that she would, whatever. Anyway. Okay. Paul says Nevada is starting a 4680 battery line. Okay, that's good. So I know that Fremont, of course, the Cato Road plant is their pilot plant, and they're producing a lot of 4680s. I assume they've got a giant like stockpile of them at this point because they've been producing them for a while and no cars use them yet. But they're probably shipping them all to Germany right now for use in the Model Ys that are coming out of Berlin starting in the summer, hopefully. So, but yeah, that's really good news. If they're starting a 4680 line in Nevada, they're going to do a 4680 line in Texas, and they're definitely doing a 4680 line in Berlin. So again, short-term bottleneck, but once they get that all working, and then there's other companies too. Maybe even the one, I think the one in Nevada might be, is it LG Chem that's doing it? Or is it Panasonic? But I think it's a third-party company that's teaming with Tesla to build the batteries themselves at one of those places. And so they're kind of licensing that architecture and that chemistry to create those battery cells. So anyway, I think that's pretty cool. So that's really awesome. Have you played Volume on 11 yet from Tesla owner? Is there actually? Can you turn it up to 11? I don't know how to do that. I haven't seen that. If there's a way, let me know, because that would be so funny. I mean, I assume with like Rainbow Road that, you know, you also get like the more cowbell. So that would be super awesome. Please let me know about turning volume to 11 if that's actually a little Easter egg in there. I would love that. Okay, let's see. Paul, Panasonic stated that they are adding it. Yes, okay, right. So it is Panasonic from Paul. So Panasonic is the one who's building the plant to build 4680 cells. But again, I assume that's under some sort of licensing deal with Tesla since they developed the technology for it. But that will be huge. The more companies that are producing batteries right now, this is the main sticking point for all EVs in the whole world, is raw materials and battery manufacturing. Those two things are huge. Benjamin says it got me to click. I'm not sure what about that. Love Mike. Okay. Okay. Speaking of sound, this is rather amusing. From my wife, we got you'd probably be a bit upset if you knew how loud I turned the music up in the Tesla when you weren't there. As a sound designer, I'm really sensitive to not playing things too loud because I'm very much about preserving your ears so that you can hear the very quiet things. So yeah, I probably would be surprised. I do hear her in the driveway when she's coming home. I'm hearing those boom, 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 boom. So I think she does play the music pretty loud when I'm not in the car with her. So Elon is going to own Texas, Mark. Well, okay, there we go. That'll be really amusing if he does. So he was already renaming one town to be Starbase. So maybe we can call it like, I don't know. It's what? Tesla X, or well, I think somebody was talking about like Company X, that he needs to become like Alphabet and he needs to take all the companies and make them Company X or something. So maybe the whole state will be called Company X eventually. I don't know. All right, let's see. Okay, the Texans will love that shirt from Paul. Oh, awesome. Okay, I'm glad. as long as they'll like it and they won't take offense about it, I think that's awesome. Okay, Mark says we progress without the politicians. Yeah, exactly. Man, I tell you. All right, let me try to skip through a bunch of these. Okay, Benjamin says 500-mile Cybertruck. Yes, I don't know if we'll be able to afford the tri-motor one, but 500 miles is, you know, people talk about how it's not necessary, but I actually like that amount of mileage. And that'd be about 800 kilometers. So I just think that if we would go down like visiting my parents to only one stop, and that would be a huge help. So I think that 500 miles is kind of an ideal for that. All right. Nasan says we can do a live stream for 2 hours. I'm not sure my voice is going to hold out for that long. We'll see. Okay, Chris, some estimate tax maybe. Oh goodness, Tesla owner says that the new tax credit in the U.S. might be up to $10,000 per vehicle. That would be wow. So could you imagine if the U.S. gave a $10,000 tax credit and then the car itself cost $25,000? How would you possibly compete with a $15,000 battery electric vehicle? That would be crazy. All right. Okay, let's see. Beto says, I have a Nissan Leaf for 5 years, 130,000 miles, and it went from 95 miles to 65 on a charge. Not bad if you ask me. Yeah. So that's really actually pretty good. Of course, the Nissan Leaf was never designed. I really wanted to get a Nissan Leaf. We ended up buying a Prius back around 2010 or 2011 instead. But I love the idea of the Leaf. So I've been into electric vehicles for a long, long time, but it just didn't have quite the range where I could see it becoming practical. So now, technology is finally catching up. But that's really good to know that you've got 130,000 miles on it and it's still going like 65, 70% of what it was originally. And the Leaf batteries are not the modern technology either. So, right. So all of that is really good to know. All right. Sorry. Just catching up with a lot of these things. So, all right. Yes. Okay, so hopefully I answered this, but the whole question in the comments about the home charging is that I just do it for convenience 3 times a week. It's not necessary. Of necessity, probably, oh gosh, I mean, if I wanted to really push it, I could probably go to once every 10 days or so, something like that, but I'm not that kind of person, so. All right. Oh, wow, interesting. Benjamin also says he has a 2015 Nissan Leaf, and moderate temperatures, it's better than advertised range. So that's pretty cool, even after 6 years. That's awesome. Okay. All right, CPU fan. Yes, Danny Check, I know my CPU fan is super loud. I apologize about that. It's hard. One of these days, I'm going to figure out how to get an external camera to do the thing so I can put my laptop like far away and the hissing sound won't sound that bad. Or I can run it off my desktop, which is a lot quieter. So, okay. Oh, so Tesla owner, this is a good question. If I drive 30 miles in a day and use 10 to 70% and then plug in to charge to 80%, is that considered a cycle? No. So one cycle is 100% of the battery. So if you drove from 80% down to 70% and then recharge, that would be 1/10 of a cycle. So that's the reason why you don't have to worry so much. So if you have 300 miles of range and you have 1,000 cycle life before it hits 80%, that's 300,000 miles. Easy math right there. So so that's the reason why, if you recharge, it doesn't matter that much. Now, obviously, I think it hurts the battery more when you charge it up to absolutely 100% because all the batteries get really, all that charge that they're holding on to is not particularly good for the battery in terms of longevity. So the best thing you could do is to keep it in that 20 to 80% range and just let it kind of charge back and forth in between there. So it will do even better than the 1,000 cycles if you're charging it in an intelligent, a way that takes account of the fact that the batteries need to be in that sort of middle range. So there you go. All right. Mark says he only uses the city bus. Man, good for you. I just don't live in a place where we just don't have very good public transportation, which kind of sucks. So, yes, and Mark also notes, this is from an earlier part of the conversation, how many ICE cars are on the used car lot that controls the value of ICE cars. And that was the reason why, when we looked for these Teslas, I was like, well, let's look at used ones. But the used ones, there was only like 3 within a couple hundred miles of me, and they were all so expensive that I was like, there's no reason not to just buy a new one at this point. So it wasn't saving hardly anything, and they had 30,000 miles on them, and they were older technology. So why buy used at that point? So, all right. Do you see wireless charging becoming available for EVs? That is a very good question. Oh, and Mark, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. I think I'm catching them twice somehow. Anyway, wireless charging for vehicles is inevitable. Boy, that is a toughie. I really love the convenience of wireless charging for my phone, but they are not as efficient as direct cable charging. So the downside of it is that you use, I think it's like 30% more power. So when I take my phone at night and I stick it on the pad, it uses like 30% more electricity to charge the battery in the phone than it would if I plugged it directly in. And of course, there's a lot of heat too. You can you can feel the thing when you pick it up. It's like, woo. So that's not that big a deal in a phone because it's a tiny battery, but geez, a 75 kilowatt hour battery, if you added a third to that's like, it's going to put it up close to effectively a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack that it's charging. That's a lot of extra load on the grid. So I think wireless charging could, if they can make it more efficient. Now, I mean, the ideal goal would be like in your garage that you just have something you would lay out in the garage and you'd plug it into your 240 volt thing. You'd drive your car in. You know, when you got back at the end of the day, you close the garage door, and at the time, it would just start up. So you would literally never have to plug your car in. It would just be there. So the convenience factor would be great, but I really think they have to get the efficiency of wireless charging much, much better than it is right now. I just don't think that's good for the electrical grid. And it's not good for your power bills either. You're going to be paying an extra 30%-ish to charge wirelessly as opposed to wired. So, I don't know. For like city buses and stuff, that could be pretty cool, right? So like the buses, when they come into the bus stops, there's like a wireless charging. And if you had an electric bus, it would pull in. It's waiting there for 30 seconds while people are getting on and off. And so it gets a little juice, and then it drives to the next stop and it gets a little more juice. So something like that would be super cool. But again, it'd probably be more efficient if it had like one of those little antennae sticking off the top, and it just had like something that it drove under and it touched it. So with a cable. So I don't know. I love wireless charging. I love the convenience, but it terrifies me how much extra power it uses for wireless charging. So that's the issue with that. Okay, and Gayton says, yeah, I have a Chevy Volt. It's an electric car with a gas generator. So thank you for letting me know that. That's what I thought it was. So it's using an electric motor to drive it. I love the car, but the next one's a Cybertruck. So same. For any homeowner, it does not make sense to not have an EV. For those that do not own, we are not just there yet. So this is from Beto Beto. That is a good point. It's still a really big issue for like my sons. Both of them live in apartments. You know, what do you do about charging in that case? It's a pain in the butt because you'd have to like literally once a week or something, drive to a supercharger, plug it in, and just sit there. So it takes away a lot of the convenience. Now, admittedly, you have to go to a gas station once a week or whatever too, but it takes away a lot of the convenience of the car if you don't have a way to charge it easily. Now, one thing we did find out, and this is kind of curious, when I was visiting my parents, we had just the 120 volt thing that comes standard with the car, and it charged really slow. It was only 5 miles an hour, but you know, if you leave it in, that's 40 miles. Like we plugged it in overnight, 8 hours, it charged 40 miles overnight. So that's not nothing. So you can do that with an apartment if you have, number one, neighbors who are nice to you and won't steal your extension cord and stuff. And number two, if you have access to an electrical outlet that's reasonably close to where you can park your car. So it is possible with an apartment. Inside of a large urban city area or something, my one son lives in New York, in Brooklyn, that would be much harder because people are just going to steal that thing if you try to charge with the cable. So that would be very difficult. But certainly in a more suburban setting, apartment complex, I could see that being a reasonable option. And you know, 40 miles or 50 miles overnight is not nothing. That's enough. That's all we drive on a normal basis. So, you know, that's plenty for us to be able to get around for a day. So not such a bad idea. Carl says, can you subscribe twice? Oh man, I wish. You can make a new account and you can subscribe from the new account. So thank you. But I appreciate that. That's a lovely compliment. Thank you. Tesla owner, do you think that your Tesla will increase in value as Elon Musk suggested as FSD is rolled out? Oh, good gracious. I hope so. I mean, I don't think it's going to directly increase in value because FSD is such a weird thing in terms of resale and stuff. But where the value could come in, of course, is if they allow robo-taxi fleets to be deployed. And so if we choose to add our car to the robo-taxi fleet and robo-taxi fleets are rolled out, then we could make a lot of money off of our cars. So that could be pretty cool. So conversion kits for classic cars. This is off Discord. Conversion kits for classic ICE cars could be a game changer. That would be so cool. You just go in there. I could see a whole like YouTube channel on like convert my car, right? And they just go in there and they pull out all the ICE stuff, the engine and everything, and they stick in some electric motors and some batteries. The compartment where the engine would be pretty ideal, right? You put the motor itself is pretty small and then a big battery pack. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. So good idea. I like that. I think that's a YouTube channel for someone who's much more mechanically minded than me. I'm certainly not that. So, okay. I'm going to skip. I apologize. Wow. I've got to stop the stream. It's been 90 minutes. This is great. I did this as kind of an experiment. I would love to continue doing this. So I'm so happy that I'm getting good response. So we will definitely make this happen in the future for sure. 420, 420, 420 from Tesla. See, I think other people agree. I think Elon for sure is going to go 420 because he's a troll. Absolutely. How much did it cost to have the home charger installed, or did you install it yourself? This is from KN944. One just a side note. Pimp My Car going electric edition. That is awesome. Perfect. Thank you. Let's make that happen. We should totally pitch that to like NBC or something, or some channel, and just be like, or what is it, HGTV or whatever. I don't know who does Pimp My Car right now, but that would be hysterical. Oh man, I wish I had any kind of mechanical knowledge whatsoever, but that is awesome. Okay, anyway, so KN944 said, how much did it cost to have the home charger installed? So the home charger itself is about $500, and then we got an electrician. I didn't want to mess with 240 volts. It's a 60 amp like double circuit, and it's 240 volts, and I just don't mess with electricity at that level because you can kill yourself and you can burn the house down. So we got a licensed electrician to come in for $180, which was very inexpensive. He installed it. And then Georgia Power gave us $500 back for the charger. So we ended up only paying $180 for the install. So basically we paid for the installation and got the charger for free. So I was like, that's a no-brainer. When you're paying 50 grand for a car, it's like the extra $180 is not that big a deal. Plus the fact I figure easily by now I would have paid $180 in gas with a gas car. So made the money back at that point. So Andre says, if full self-driving is released on 420, does that make it vaporware? Yes, there we go. It'll be the only vaporware in history that's actually valuable. So there you go. Carl says 4680 is just a measurement. Yes, so anyone can make that size cell. The patents cover the tabless design and the manufacturing process, and I think also the chemistry as well. So yes, I'm sorry. I mean, 4680 is just a convenience, but that weird little shingled top thingy that they have where it goes around in a spiral, that is all patented. The manufacturing, like crazy 3D thing that they're like spinning around and making the like, it looks like a Coke bottle factory. But anyway, those are patented, and I believe some chemistry in the batteries is also patented. So yes, thank you for that. Absolutely. Okay, Tesla owner, for volume 11, turn on your favorite song, roll down the windows, push the right scroll wheel, and say set volume to 11. As soon as I get done with this, I'm going downstairs and I'm going to do that. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so turn on your song, roll down the windows, push the right scroll wheel, and say set volume to 11. Thank you so much. I can't wait. Teslas, they're talking about the dealer rebate. Okay. Elon says charge to 90 to 95% mainly to allow for regen braking. Oh, yes. KN944, that is actually a big point. And we noticed this when we were driving the car. We would charge it up to like pretty close to 100%, right, to go to the next supercharger as we were driving. And there's like little dots. And I've talked about this in a previous episode too, but there's these little dots that show you that regen braking isn't going to work in that section because there's like a black part that goes one direction and then it turns green when it's making power. And when the battery is charged up too high, it can't regenerate because it can't capture that battery, the electrons. So basically you're using your brakes when it's charged up fully. So yeah, charging more than about 90% causes the regen braking to function much, much less well. Down to basically nothing at 100%. So that's a really good point. Thank you. All right. I could use a PC instead of an all-in-one Mac. Yes, yeah, I know. Believe me, I really, really detest iMac's form factor. I think it's incredibly wasteful that you don't have a separate computer and monitor. It's just for any kind of professional work. I mean, yeah, fine if you want it, that's fine. But I'm using a laptop right now to record this, which is why it's so particularly loud. But one of these days I'll get it all set up and we'll make it work. So, okay. Let's see, Mark, if used ICE cars fall to scrap value, a new ICE car falls to scrap value as soon as it's driven off the lot. Mark, yes. So this is the deflationary problem. internal combustion engine cars, if there is a collapse of the value, it basically means within some period of time, they will drop to almost nothing. They'll be worth the amount of scrap metal that they have. Maybe a little bit more, who knows. But so a $30,000 car could suddenly be worth, $1,500 in scrap metal. But as he's pointing out, immediately after driving the car off the lot, it goes chunk, right? Immediately after driving the car off the lot right now, you still lose 20 or 30% of the value of the car, just like it just falls off the deep end for most cars. But if they deflate to nothing, it's a bad idea. And that means that the loans, because basically most people get loans to pay for their cars. So if you bought a $30,000 car and you got a $25,000 loan, but then as soon as you drove the car off the lot, the car is only worth a couple of $1,000s. Nobody's going to give you that loan. So that means the whole dealership loan model is busted, because basically the car itself is the value of the loan, because they can always take the car back and sell it. So bad times. It's going to be a vicious cycle when that all happens. Ouch. Nasen says, thank you for spending time on Saturday with us. Love it. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate the comment. GM stopped manufacturing the Volt after 2018. GM is clueless. They also killed the original EV car, which was amazing. I never got to drive in one, but apparently everybody who drove one loved it, the EV one. Mark says that Jack Rickard gave up on the conversion business because buying a new Tesla was cheaper. So, oh well. But I mean, if we get into that sort of pimp my car kind of realm, it's not really about the cheapness anymore. It's just about the fun for doing it. So anyway, but that, it's probably true. It would cost a lot of money to convert a car over for sure. RK says Cybertruck pilot production line is in Fremont, not Nevada. Nevada is for semi, from what I know. Yes, RK, that is true, but I believe that Panasonic, either inside the Giga Nevada factory or right next to it, is building a new plant. So the Fremont one is like a pilot production line. It was to work out the kinks and to figure out how to do it. They're generating a lot of batteries, but it was never intended to be like a full-fledged production line, whereas the one in Nevada that they're building and the one in Texas and the one in Berlin that they're building, and maybe in Shanghai too, are going to be full-fledged ones that are going to crank these suckers out fast. So that's the difference. Hans says Model 3 from Berlin will probably also be redesigned using the single-piece casting. Yes. Hans, do you know when the Model 3 is supposed to come out? I know the Model Y is the very first thing that they're talking about, but I don't know when the Model 3 is going to come out. Maybe with the first expansion in another year or something. But I would certainly imagine by then. I actually just watched a video from IDRA, IDRA, which is the company that makes the Giga casting machines, and holy crap, those things are big. It's really cool. I might actually do an episode on that if people are interested, but it's just an amazing video. Very corporate, very dry, but if you look at what they're talking about, it's miraculous kind of stuff, and it gave me a lot more insight into exactly how this die casting stuff works, and it's even more amazing than I thought it was. So very cool. I highly recommend it. Okay, YouTube channel. Oh, Carl says that EVTV is the YouTube channel. So Jack Rickard was a great, knowledgeable EV guy who converted, but he finally said he can't make a car that good, just buy a Tesla. So, oh well, I guess it's already been done. Sorry so much for our great ideas. Opsar, pressing the like button for more live streams in the future. Thank you so much. All right, I am going to sign off. Wow, it's been an hour and a half. So thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciated your comments. It made it a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it, and definitely for sure, subscribe, etc., so that you can catch more of these. I'll try to do these like once every week or two, and maybe we can just kind of establish a time on like a Saturday or something, so that people kind of know ahead of time that it's going to come up. And next time I'll actually start it on time, because I'll have figured out that I have to copy the new stream data from YouTube. Anyway, I figured out what the problem was. So thank you all so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. Big cheers to you. I will talk to you all later. Now I'm going to go do something fun this afternoon with misinformation. So I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.